Ooh, what's going on, everyone? What's up? Let me just lower the volume here real quick. Let's see. Can you guys hear me all right? Welcome, welcome, welcome. What's going on, everyone? My name is Rodolfo Silva, and I'm a Maxon ZBrush trainer, and we're back. We're back to ZBrush Live, streaming directly from Germany here at the Maxon office. So I am so glad, you guys. This is 2025, first stream of 2025, and I'll have you guys know that we have so much in store for you guys. But let's get back on track here. And let's start with some housekeeping, right? So I'm gonna just pull this in to the screen real quick, and you can see me. Let's first start off with ZBrush Central. I like to start off with ZBrush Central. Let's start creating a routine here, guys. So 2025, there's gonna be some changes here to the way we do streaming, right? So the staff streams is me, Paul, Daisuke, and Ian. We're all coming back to ZBrush Live to start streaming regularly. And I'm kicking things off because I'm on the Thursday slot. And I would like to start off with the house cleaning on ZBrush Central, because to me, this is the place where you guys need to go to post your ZBrush artwork, right? We have the staff picks. And we have this row here, which is the staff picks, right? So all of the ZBrush team, developers included, but me, Paul, Ian, everyone involved in the making of ZBrush, where we pick weekly artworks that you guys post in here. And it's been crazy. Like the amount of quality artworks that we see each week is just astounding. So this is staff picks. Then the top row, obviously you guys know what the top row is. That's the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme. All right. And yeah, so you see, like, there's a bunch of people, from artists to production artists to fan art, like anything that you want to check out artwork wise. And even, I'm a little biased, but even some environment art. We see some environment art over here. And, I'm biased towards that, but, So, yeah, so ZBrush Central is the place to go. If you don't have an account, just go in there. And again, ZBrush Central is not like an art station, okay? I get this a lot. It's not like an art station. It's supposed to be more of a forum, more of a discussion board. You promote your artwork, that's true. And this links directly to ZBrush, the application, which means that the screensaver, you guys go about how do they put, what is the standard to bring images to the screensaver. So the screensaver pulls from here, from ZBrush Central, right? So top row and staff picks gets pulled into the application. And obviously this is something that used to be more like back in the day, but if you open up any thread, we encourage you guys to not only just put final artworks, but also making off pieces, little shots of, how you made this piece, and then what techniques did you use, and some turntables maybe, etc. Right? So then, if you guys are brand new to ZBrush, because I know some people might be here in the chat, basically what you want to go to is our playlist on our YouTube channel. We have two playlists. So one for ZBrush for desktop, which is this one, Getting Started with ZBrush, and you can find it on our channel here under playlists. And you have these playlists right here. So Getting Started with ZBrush for Desktop, that's right there. And then you have a Getting Started series for ZBrush for iPad, which is yours truly. If you're not tired of seeing my ugly mug on stream, you can always go to the playlists and you'll see a playlist that we put together, me and Ian Robinson, on how to get started, like the fundamentals of the UI, the fundamentals of the tools, the brushes, etc. on ZBrush for iPad. So, now, back to the stream. Video quality is limited to 720p. This is probably a YouTube thing. It's not something that I can control on my end. Hello, Rodolfo. Hello, Lisa. How are you guys doing? I see a lot of people here. That's good. That's good. So now, let's get back to the topic, right? So the proper way. That means that we're going to be making props. You heard of that, right? If you haven't noticed from the the pun title that I came up with, I don't know, like in a toilet or something. We are going to make props for environments, obviously. You know, it's me. So basically, I have this dungeon that I'm building, right? I'm building this video game environment dungeon thing. And I'm currently in the process of building a ton of like environmental props, including rocks and architectural pieces, you know, tileable textures, whatever it is that you can do in ZBrush. And in this particular stream, the proper way, we're going to start cluttering that environment. Going to start creating small little props, everything from like bookshelves to fireplaces to chests to cupboards, tables, like statues, banners, whatever you guys might think of. And if you think of something that fits the environment, let me know in the comments, or let me know in chat, or let me know on my Discord, or in the official ZBrush Discord, or in the, I don't know. Like, there's so many channels you guys can just suggest stuff and show artwork that you might be doing and sculpting along as we're doing these streams, right? So just reach out to me, Instagram, wherever, and let me know your ideas, and I'll consider it. And obviously, if you have any questions regarding ZBrush, this is the place to go, right? This and tomorrow's stream, Daisuke and Paul are going to stream tomorrow, Paul Gabry. And then Ian is also going to stream. He's on the Wednesday slots, if I'm not mistaken. So feel free to reach out to any one of us and just ask any questions that you guys might have regarding ZBrush, right? So I have this little thing here. This is just a couple of props that I made. Actually, not props. Well, they are props, but they're more environmental assets, what I call them. So they're used as the building blocks, like the Lego blocks, to then build your environment in whatever game engine or render engine that you're using, and DCC, whatever it is, right? So, and we're going to use this as a reference point. So what I thought for today was that we're going to model a bookshelf, a modular bookshelf, right? That we're going to be using throughout the environment. And maybe some books, maybe some other props like scrolls, like some skulls, maybe they're going to be hanging around the place everywhere, you know, and that's going to be cool. And in this stream, again, it's just props. But anyway, the next stream, which is on the 27th, I think, let me check my calendar. It's 27th. Yeah. On the 27th, I'm going to be back to the Building World stream, which is going to be more like this, right? What you're seeing here on screen, which is more environmental props, like architecture, like tileable textures, like rocks, modular world building props, and environmental assets, right? Cool. So just, guys, let me know if the music's too loud. If it is, I can just lower it, right? If you can hear my voice. Or maybe I need to adjust the mic here. Well, just put it in face here. All right, so we have this, and again, like this is a ZPR, it's a big ZPR. Like we can see here that we have like not only this, but we have other assets like displacement techniques that we see over here. Like we're using displacement maps baked from substance out of a tileable texture that we made in ZBrush, and then just creating nanite meshes for those modular props. But this is for another topic. Today, what I thought we were going to do here is actually start modeling some props. So I'm going to open up this file that I prepared over here, which is props01. This is going to be our little ZBrush Live project. There we go. So we have a little, this is actually the game ready mesh. Well, not really game ready, but it's like the low poly cage of that, one of those environmental props. So I'm using this as a reference for scale, right? Because again, I hear this all the time. Like ZBrush can't handle big scenes or whatever. That is a blatant lie, okay? That is a lie. It can and it will if you know how to handle certain aspects of the scaling features, right? Which is better for coloring, ZBrush or Substance Painter? So it depends on what you mean by coloring, and depends on which industry you're working in. If you're working for collectibles and you want to showcase an iterative model to your client, and you just want to showcase like the base color passes, or if you're doing injection molding, any sort of like that type of work, poly paint is your way to go, because you're sculpting and you're applying the color and you're painting the color using spotlight maybe to project some textures, using surface noise maybe. That works, right? But for gaming and visual effects, you will probably have to use a little bit of both, but mostly substance, right? You're painting on your UVs. You're painting a 2D texture, which means Substance Painter is your application for that. With that in mind, though, I use ZBrush for a lot of the prep work for Substance, including assigning polypaint as color IDs. So to mask off different materials within the same texture, we use color IDs in the industry, right? And polypaint is literally all you need. So you apply polypaint to your high poly, and then you bake that as a color ID in Substance Painter. You can also use that for, like, maybe you have a specific, let's say, surface noise that you're applying, like wear and tear or something to a surface, and in your surface noise, you can do color gradations of that surface noise and apply that polypaint, and then get that in Substance baked in, right? So there's so many avenues, right? So many ways to go about it, but usually games VFX, you would do something like your final texturing Substance, and for collectibles, doesn't really matter because it's going to be printed or injection molded into your final piece, right? So it depends on the industry for sure. Music is good, the music is all right, you're on fire. Hey Layla, how you doing? Nice to see you here. And I'm on fire. I don't know about that, I haven't even started. All right, so let's go ahead. Guys, feel free to just pop in any questions on chat and let me know if you guys need anything. If you guys, this is supposed to be more of a sculpt along kind of thing. But again, I'll be showcasing the techniques and I'll be narrating it to the best of my ability. And then you guys can just populate the chat with questions. I'll look at it eventually. So, yeah. So I'm starting off with this cube. This is just an insert, basically a Polymesh 3D cube that I just put in. Let me just adjust here my tablet real quick. There we go. And what we have here is what I usually do when I'm starting to block out. Let me just put up my reference here real quick on the side. So I have everything at once. Guys, I have like 3 screens here. It's not easy. It is not easy. First world problems, I know. Sorry. So there we go. We're going to do like this stone, like a stone bookcase. I don't know if you guys can still hear me. What? Let's see. Thank you. I'm here. Good to learn. Okay, that's good to know. All right. So what I usually do, this depends on the artist. Obviously, some people just like to start sculpting right away. I like to use these gizmo primitives, right? So what I usually do, let's do like, what do you call that? Archway ogiva, which is like the Gothic kind of archway, right? So what I usually do is I start with one of these primitives, and these little gizmo primitives allow you to change whatever you would change on the initialize button when you're creating a new tool from scratch, but with little cones, right? And they're iterative. So that means I can change them on the fly. Maybe I want to scale this up and down. Maybe I just want to, I don't know, like distort this, go back here. And then as you change this, if you hold shift, it's going to retain that shape and just add some of those loops, right? I want an edge loop right there in the middle. It's something I really want. And then you can also just make this like a hollow thing. Like if you're doing an actual archway, this is the way to go, right? You start off with something like this. And then obviously you have your poly groups. You can also assign different poly groups based on normals, and then just have dynamic subdivision do the work for you. In this case, I think we're good with something maybe like this. Let's do something like this, right? And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna close this hole in the back, and then have that be the base of sort of like our sculpt, right? So let me turn off perspective here. Oh Jesus, my setup is kind of like a messy chaos over here. Let me just push my mouse over here, because I might need a mouse for some Z-modeler action. There we go. All right, so we have this archway over here, and now I can go back here. I can either click accept, or like go to cylinder 3D, go over here, and now I can just click, not accept, I can just click any deformer that I want. I might want, this case, maybe like just a generic deformer. And this is like, if you're a Maya user, this is like your lattice deformer, right? This is the same thing in essence. So, hello there, got a question. Major changes, ZBrush. Oh, there's a lot of them. There's just a lot of features. Like from 2022, that's crazy. That's like 3 years. So, Jesus, from like repeat to similar to major stuff for character art, like proxy pose, for example. there's so many. There's so many things. Like Drop 3D is one of my favorite ones. I mean, I can show you a few of them. Like Drop 3D is a big one. I'll dedicate a small section at the end of the stream to just going over a few of them if you guys want. But I mean, specific features, there's just a list, right? The IMM repeat to similar parts one, like for hard surface geeks like me, that one is a big one, and Drop 3D as well. That's also a big one. Proxy pose for character posing, big one. There's there's so many that it's really, really hard to pinpoint. But I would say at least like 12 features, 12 major features. There's Maxon noises that were added. There's a lot. Drag stamp, new stroke types, you know. So yeah, there's big feature. Of course, there's like the biggest one, which is like if you own a ZBrush 2025 license, you get ZBrush for iPad included, right? And Redshift, which is two major, you know, like, because like I always see, I tell this to everyone, I always see ZBrush for iPad as sort of an extension, like a second arm to ZBrush. It's still part of ZBrush. It's still ZBrush. And then there's basically ZBrush for iPad stands on its own, but if you have ZBrush for desktop, it's an extended set of features. It will let you take a bunch of these features on the desktop with you on the go and then just sculpt on the go, right? Yeah. So we did a stream, a few streams on that. I can point it to you at the end of the stream, but for sure we can do a stream dedicated for that if you guys want. That's fine, for sure. But I can go over a few of them, and yeah. I have an excuse to get a newer iPad. It's so cool. It's on the... Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you don't need the latest, the most amazing, like, M4 chip to run ZBrush on the iPad, right? It works with any of the M chips, right? Any iPad that has an M chip, it works, right? Obviously, the higher you go in terms of memory, the better performant it will be, because, like, again, you guys know, if you're ZBrush users, RAM is... the amount of polygons you can handle on your machine in ZBrush is directly tied to your RAM, basically, right? And on the iPad, this disk space as well, because it's basically it's caching the memory, right? It's shared memory, so that means that the higher the disk space that you have, the better performant your memory will be, which means the faster ZBrush will run, right? But I would say it will run pretty fast, regardless. Obviously, it depends on your project. If you're running like 150 million polygons, obviously, if you have an older iPad, that's going to lag a little bit. But you can still sculpt like up to 10, 20 million polygons on an older iPad. You know what I mean? So yeah. Thank you for the iPad. Yeah, you have a getting started series on YouTube. I just did the house cleaning in the beginning of the stream. If you guys want to rewatch that, so yeah, it's a playlist on our YouTube channel. So back to this, right? So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna mask one of those points, and I'm gonna stretch it out, and it crashed. Oh, and by the way, this is a good segue. This is the environment you guys are looking at right here. So we want to add props to this, right? To this environment that I've built over here. I'm actually in the process of still building this, right? So this is gonna have, you can see there's a lot of missing meshes over here and stuff like that. So let me run this again to see if it pops up. So everything that you see on screen right here was sculpted in ZBrush, all right? There was nothing here that didn't start and eventually ended the modeling process in ZBrush, including the tile level textures on the walls and the ground planes, everything, like the staircase was in ZBrush. These pillars, like every single modular mesh that you see here, this is like modular, right, was sculpted in ZBrush, right? So this is something I also get. Oh, ZBrush is used for characters. It's like yes and no, right? I'm gonna close this because it's probably why it's lagging a little bit and making my ZBrush crash. So obviously it only crashes on stream because that's what usually happens. So let me open it up again for you guys and let's do it over again. Let's go. Thank you. Yeah. So it's still in the early stage. I mean, I have the base stylable textures done. I have a few concepts for props. That's what we want to go over on these streams. I want to sculpt them live so you guys can see the process, let's say. All right, let's start over. So I'm going to go over here, go to my cylinder 3D. I like cylinder 3D because it has a pole right in the middle. If you go to cylinder, polygon cylinder, which is this one, you're going to get this, right? Which might be what you want for subdivisions. So if I run some subdivisions, you can see you have a little bit of stretching over there, but for sculpting, this is like fine because it's all quads, right? But if you don't, if you're like me, you want to start by blocking it out in a very low poly state. What you want to do is you want to go over and then run this one. This is my favorite cylinder, right? So another thing we can do is actually you can start by extending the mesh right out the gate. So we can go like this with the extender. We're extending that mesh, and then we can add more. We can do the size, like we can go crazy like this. I don't know why you do that, but whatever. And then we can also basically go and inflate. We can inflate that middle section, which might be what we want. Actually, it does. Maybe I'll inflate it down like so. Right? Maybe I want something like that. Maybe I want some more resolution there in the middle. I don't need it creased, so I can just do this on this little cone and it will uncrease that. And now if I press D to preview that, and let me crease by angle, and now I have this little preview of what it's going to look like when it's basically subdivided, right? And we have that on the fly. So this is something I do all the time. It's just playing around with dynamic subdivision, extenders and deformers with the gizmo, and ZModeler all together, right? So this is the blockout stage, let's say. Post-grad, computer animation, so I only messed with ZBrush for a couple of months, but now I see the amazing stuff you can do. Yeah, like literally, here's the thing. Like when I was freelancing as an environment artist, even before then, like when I was teaching, before I did my master's degree and all of that, I was a Maya user 100%, right? This is all my modeling was done in Maya. And then I would just sculpt a few things in ZBrush. And ever since I just switched 100% to ZBrush, like my workflow has been like way faster, and ideation as well, because this is the point, right? I'm going to show you guys a few things that I have in mind. So I have in mind to do like a bookcase, and I have like this wall thing that has like these handles that are very common in like dungeons, so you can attach chains and stuff. And I'm going to build that, and then we're going to construct our bookshelves and our architectural detail pieces based on those individual pieces, if that makes sense. So what I need is like this side, for example, of the bookshelf is going to be separated and baked separately, right? So then in the engine, we can actually just assemble our variations of props without having to worry about remodeling everything and retexturing everything, right? It's very common in the games industry to do stuff like that, those little shortcuts, right? So now that we have this, I can actually go over here, click and hold Control, and then click this polygroup, and now it's masking everything else, right? I don't need this as well, so I can just go and flip this, Control W, to have a polygroup over there. And now I can just Control tap that and center my pivot. And now I'm gonna go and deform, right? I can add divides to this, sort of like you do again in the lattice deformer. And now I can add also some divides over here. Maybe, let's see if this works. I think that works, sort of. I don't know. Maybe I don't want this. I want maybe just a single one. So I can just push this up without influencing that base necessarily. And then we can tweak it anyway. But no, I actually like the other one. And you can see like how easy it is to just change the shape on the fly. And again, we don't need to worry about topology again, because we're going to sculpt on this. We're going to dynamesh it more. We're going to dynamesh it more likely than, you know, just actually doing everything like box modeling. So we're going to go like this, right? And this is something, I don't know, maybe we want to go over here, maybe mask this individual point. And again, I'm still in my low poly state. This is just a preview, right? So I can just move this up, right? And if I really want to have this, you know, be sharp or sharper, I can go over here to my BZM, my Z modeler, could Shift D to look at the low poly, and press and hold spacebar, go over here to crease edge partial, and now we get something like that. Maybe I don't really like that actually. So I might just use this and then go to my edges, press and hold spacebar, insert single edge loop. Using symmetry, I'm just gonna put a little edge over there. So now it's a little sharper, but not that sharp, right? And here we go. So now another thing I can do is I can Control Shift isolate that, and then I am just gonna delete hidden. And actually I wanna delete that as well, so I can control, actually before I delete this, I'm just inverting that selection, and I'll Control Shift S to shrink that selection. And now this is what I'll be deleting. So I can just go over here and delete hidden. And now I can close holes. Again, this is geometry modified topology close holes. I'm just using my custom menu. So technically I could be working like this, like full screen, right? Which is, I mean, I could work like this anyway. So let me just do, actually let me save this project. And I'm gonna show you real quick. Because people go like, oh, the UI is like super cluttered. You can make the UI however you like, very minimalistic, or you can just go like a spaceship cockpit. I've seen UIs that look like freaking spaceship cockpits. But I've also seen, like, I have a friend that he's a character artist. He works with incredible pieces of cloth. Actually, the piece I showed you from ZBrush Central is from him, Steven Van Zeller. So, and the guy literally works, it has no UI. Like the whole ZBrush UI is just clean, just the single mesh, and then he has like these custom menus. So if I go over here to my file, let me just save this. It's saving. And now I'm gonna go full screen. I'm gonna go to document. I'm gonna create new document. And I'm just gonna go like this, press T. And now I have full screen. And I'm just like cleaned up my UI, and it's literally this. You don't even, like that guy I just told you about, it doesn't even have this bar up in the top, right? He hid that bar. So there you go. So again, and also like for people wondering about the cam view, you can make cam views over here under your cam view. Where's the cam view? Cam view, cam view. There you go. Cam view. And then you can make a cam view just by clicking here. Like whatever model you have, whatever you have on screen, is going to get rendered and creating a cam view, right? So, and then you can just switch for different cam views over there. Let's keep it to the basic ones, probably the ones you guys, the cam view you guys have on your UI. So what were you previewing your environment in? Was that Unreal? Yeah, that was Unreal. That was Unreal Engine 5. So for some of you guys that know me know that I'm also like an Unreal Engine 5 environment technical artist. So you look like Armstrong. I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but thank you if it was. This feature on ZBrush so cool, it reminds me of using lattices. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like using a lattice, right? So I'm going to crease this again, and let's go and look at this. All right, so I like this shape. As it actually, I think it's too pointy for where we're going here. It looks not at all like what I intended. So I can go back here and just go back to a deformer, actually turn off symmetry, and click the deformer again. And what I want to do is I want to make this less sharp, maybe. Maybe I want this as well to move it back. So it's just masking and moving these points over here. So maybe I want a little bit of a pointy edge over there, but not a lot. Oh, not that one. And then just go with my gizmo and make it maybe something like that. And maybe something like that. And now we have a little bit of a crease there. And I can actually uncrease this. So I'm going to go to my crease, edge loop partial, press and hold Alt and tap that. And now we have this little bump over there, which is a little weird, to be honest. So I'm going to delete those. Symmetry, delete that. And now we can actually make this a little bit more pointy, like so. And like that, right? Something like that. All right. That shape works for what we want, right? So another thing now that we can go about and do is let's look at this human model over here. This is the real scale in a game environment. So this would be the size of a player, right? And I'm going to start by scaling it sort of to the size that I want, right? So I'm gonna go and maybe mask this off and make it a little taller. Maybe I don't want this to be as wide. Maybe I should have thought of that before, but it's okay. I can just unmask this, go and center that on symmetry, and just make my adjustments on the fly. Just maybe something like that, right? I'm gonna gauge this by eye. It doesn't need to be perfect, right? And again, I have this as reference to average out in my head what's gonna be the textile density once we bake this, right? So I know that my current textile density is set at 10.24, which is for every 4 meters, you have a 4K texture, right? Or a 1K texture per meter, right? So yeah, let's do this. So this is our base for this, right? And what we want to do now is actually, I can just go over here and I'm going to start painting some polygroups. So I'm going to paint this polygroup over here. And now what I can do is I can just Q mesh that. Actually, let me just hold spacebar. And I'm going to Q mesh this polygroup island, Q meshing it out. Let's go low poly, actually. And now what I want to do is I want to go, actually I could split this out already. So I could just go push and hold, like my tablet's still on my screen, right? And then hold control, and now I'm just popping that off. Whoops. So doing that, and then let go. And now we have this floating thing, floating bit over here. And now we can do that over there, right? And now we have this, which is great for us. And now what we can do is we can start, whoops, by painting some polygroups over here. Maybe we want this to be extruded out perfectly. Maybe we want this, right? But it's not, basically it's not parallel. So what we want to do is actually just go and paint this one and then just push this down, and now this one, and push this in, and now they're connected, right? You don't need to merge vertices, whatever. Doesn't happen like Q mesh means quick mesh. So quickly we're doing and ideating on the fly what we want for this. So let's say I want this little border over here to be controlled. So I'm gonna go here and just paint these polygroups and then just push them out ever so slightly, right? So we have something like that, right? And now, if we want this to be closed, so we can bridge this together. So I can go over here, hold my spacebar, go bridge, and go 2 polygons. So now I can tap this polygon, tap that polygon, and boom. Right? We have a little edge loop here, so let's delete that so it actually connects with the bottom polygon. So you can see what is going on over here. And now we're going to bridge that one, and we're going to bridge that one. You're still going to get some weirdness over there, but that's mostly because we haven't welded. So if I weld my points, go again, geometry, modify topology, and weld points. Where's my weld points? It's not here. Wow, I deleted my weld points. That's not good. All right, so let's go actually to my pressing tab to go out of full screen, and then go to my geometry, modify topology, and weld points. And actually I'm gonna raise that weld point distance, weld points, and now uncrease that, uncrease all. Let's see. Oh, it's still not doing it. Okay, I guess that works. Okay, let me see something real quick. What I can do instead of that, actually, I'm going to do Q mesh. So I'm going to Q mesh, single poly, and do that. And now press and tap that to fill that area in, right? Same thing goes with this, right? So now we have that back portion of that section done, right? And now let's crease this based on angle again. And we have something along the lines like this, right? Maybe I want this to be thicker. I'll just mask this off, push this out, and then I want to unmask this maybe and push it closer. Not entirely to that, section, because we're going to start creating some cool stuff here, right? So we know that that border, for example, matches that top section. Maybe not this bottom section, but what we can do is do the same thing on this back portion over here. So I'm going to actually split this off, Control-Shift tap some polygroups, right? And Control-Shift, hold Control-Shift, and then click A. And what it's going to do is going to basically expand to the mesh, right? So if any polygon that's connected in some way, shape, or form it's going to expand to that, right? So now I have the two meshes separate in the same subtool, right? So what I can do now is I can actually mask this off and then invert that. And I think this is going to conflict with the Q mesh. I'm not sure. Let's try it. Let's go over here. Yeah, it's conflicting, right? So I'm actually going to need to split those off. They're masked. You can also split those based on mask. So you can go to subtool, under split, and split masked points. And now that's a separate subtool right there. I'm going to start naming stuff, okay? This is important. I know I always forget that. And midway through this stream, I'm going to forget, right? That's the way it goes. You guys know what I mean, right? Ooh, a lot of questions. That's cool. All right, so how can you know what textile to put on a wall house? So textile density is something you define mentally. It's not something that you have to set it in a specific software. Well, you actually do when you're UVing, right? But that's it. Like for modeling, you're gauging by eye because it needs to look right in the world you're building in, right? That's the first thing. It needs to look right within that context of an environment. And then textile density is something you worry when you're UVing. I'm just planning for it ahead. I know I don't want this to be bigger than this because, again, what I'm going to do eventually is I'm going to make these modular so I can have, like, for example, have a bunch of different variations of that model sharing the same texture set, right? For some people, it's faster to click on the keyboard. For others, it's faster to move the cursor and click on the screen. Okay, so I'm using the keyboard anyway. I'm still using the keyboard. It's like Control-Alt, right? It's navigation. So let me just name this, let's name this arch, main arch. Let me just lower my iPad real quick. Main arch, I don't know, something. And I'm gonna name this other one. Let me lower my iPad real quick because I'm not gonna be needing this. And I'm gonna rename this one back, whatever. I'm very creative with names, as you guys can see. So I put in 10K in 1K map, that's it? No, so for a first-person shooter game, that means, yeah, 10.24 per meter, right? Per centimeter, actually, right? 10.24 per centimeter means it's a 1024 pixels per meter. That's the math you need to do. You need to multiply it by 100, and that's it, right? Rodolfo, although you use ZBrush extensively, like you told us, do you still concept stuff via pencil and paper? Well, not recently, no. I haven't done that in a while. I used to draw. I used to be a fine artist, right? I still consider myself a fine artist, like to an extent. I can draw, right? But I haven't done any pencil and paper stuff in a while, right? I mean, a few sketches here and there, but not a lot. But yeah. Cool. Keep them coming, guys. Like, you guys are on fire. Shooting questions on chat. All right, so we have this back part here. And let me just actually go over here and do Q mesh by flat island. And then I'm just going to Q mesh this over there. And maybe this works, right? So what we can do now, we have this back portion done. And now this actually doesn't need to be like this. Let me see. Let me go over here to this one. And I can actually just do a little border. Let's do a little border here. So this section over here, I can actually mask it. Not mask it, polygroup it. Let me start by polygrouping this. And now what I can do is I can actually do that the same thing over here. I can go Q mesh, actually inset by polygroup all. And then I'm just insetting that section over there, right? I'm actually insetting it on the back, I think. No, I'm actually not. So that's fine. So I'm going to do that. And then as I'm holding the tablet on screen, I can tap Alt to change that on the fly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a little trim over here. So I'm going to create this little trim. I'm going to go over here and go Q mesh, polygroup island. This means that that island over there is going to get extruded, let's say. So I'm going to actually paint this polygroup over here, and I'm going to hold shift to borrow that poly group basically. And then I'm gonna Q mesh this poly group island like so, right? So now we have something like that along those lines, right? And now the same thing goes for this. Actually, I want to do that like a little lip. I want to go over here, do a little lip like that. And now I want to insert an edge loop right around there. And now I'm going to do the same thing for this one, and it's going to snap. And this is what I want, sort of like an angled surface over there. And we don't need to worry ourselves with this on the bottom. We can actually get rid of that real quick. So you're going to go like, oh, but it's creating some messy topology over there. Again, doesn't really matter because we're sculpting, but if it worries, like if it bothers you so much, let's just mask everything off, Control Shift, change our brush to something like a slice curve brush, and just do that. And boom, we have an edge loop over there. And now what we can do is just go back to our select rect brush and just hide that and go geometry modify topology, delete hidden. Mask and mask, go to our gizmo, pull this back over here, and now all we need to do is close those holes. So if I close holes, I'm gonna have a little bit of a mess there, but once we dynamesh, it won't really matter. I just crease that. And this is also in need of some extra geometry over here. So let's go multiple edges, and I want to keep that poly group, and let's just add some edge loops over there. There we go. Look at that. Looks nice. So now it's basically creased perfectly, right? So there's some issues over here that I see already. There's a few snapping issues. Actually, I think it's a creasing issue. So I might just crease this edge loop partial, and I'm creasing that, and there we go. Now we have that lip around that mesh. Now if we do this, it is starting to come together, guys. It is starting to come together. There we go. So this is just the back of this architectural section, let's say. And again, if you don't want this, let's say I want to expose the tile level texture underneath it, because then I can be creative. I can just change the texture of the mesh of the wall and have a different pattern on the background of my bookcase. But for now, let's not worry about that. I just want to block something out. So this is going to be the wall section. Maybe I want to have and guys, this is the center of the world in ZBrush, which means that what I'll be doing, and I'll be using and abusing array mesh, right? I do this all the time when I'm blocking out props and stuff. So let's say I want like some slabs over there, like wooden slabs on this section over here, right? So what I want to do now is I want to go over here. Maybe I want to extract this. So I'm going to go Q mesh poly loop, and I want to do that, but then hold control and have something like this, right? And now that this is a separate mesh, I'm going to actually go over here. Actually, before any of this, because this is still in the center, what I want to do is I want to array mesh. I want to turn on array mesh, and I want to lock position. That way, if we go to our transpose line, you can see the pivot of that array mesh stays in the position that it is, right? What would happen, and especially lock size, because if we change the size of this mesh, the pivot would move to the center of the mesh, right? So if we change this, let's say we don't have lock size on. So now if I start like Q meshing this, this poly group, let's go Q mesh this. Whoa, okay. Why is it not letting me Q mesh that? Let's go. Huh, it's doing something very weird with array mesh on for some reason. Okay, that was working. Let me just Q mesh polygroup island, and let's just start by doing that. Actually, because I already have something. Before I even extracted that, let's go lock position, but not lock size, right? I get a lot of confusion, a lot of questions about this, right? So if I Q mesh this, it's going to change the overall, let's say, bounding box of the model, right? So if I go over here and start Q meshing like crazy, actually, let me do poly loop and start Q meshing like crazy, you're going to see that my pivot point, eventually, it's going to start moving based on that position. So if we have, for example, this array mesh doing something crazy, like going and repeating, let's say 3 times, and just offset this by the same amount, like something like that. Let's do 3, right? This is the exact size of the mesh, so it matches perfectly. I have not locked the size of this mesh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start Q meshing, and now you see that it's adjusting that array based on the bounding box. You see that it matches perfectly, right? So if you don't want that to happen, you want to lock size and then do all of this. And now you see it doesn't move, right? So what you could do is you could do this and then to gauge like how much of a slab do you want over there, right? So let's say you want these to clip, right? So now I want to isolate this. I have this array mesh. Once I split that into a separate subtool, it's going to inherit that array mesh settings, those settings, right? So I want to lock those in position. And now I'm going to go back to my subtool, split hidden. And now I have a separate subtool over there, which now I can just close holes and keep modeling. Now I can go back to my gizmo and start scaling this down, and you can see it arrayed perfectly. But I don't want to array this just on this section over here. When I want to array this mesh, I want to array it, first of all, let's reset this. And, oh, by the way, if you reset, this is going to happen. It's going to bring the pivot back. So if you had lock position off, and now you basically do something, let's just move something like this. I'm going to move this, and I'm going to look at that pivot. You can see it's moving with the mesh. So if I lock position and reset, it's going to reset back to the center, right? This is important because what I want is now I want to mirror this on the x-axis. But before I need to lock my position. So lock position, reset, X mirror, and now it's going to go to that side, right? And after this, I can append a new stage and then just go, okay, I want 3 repeats. I can actually copy this. So I can go back to my, to my other mesh. Let me just go to something like this, BCB. I go to my clay buildup, change this, and now I can see that this is this array. I want to copy this array, go back to the subtool with my new transform stage 2, which I just appended. So the number 1 is that mirror I just did. Number 2, I'm going to paste that. And now I have all of that happening. I could make like a coliseum with this, right? I could just go around a freaking like ring and make like a coliseum, a bunch of columns and stuff in ZBrush. So this is why I don't get when people say, oh, you can't really, there's no environment tools in ZBrush. Like to me, this is like game changer. Imagine the amount of time it would take you to come up with something like this in DCCs, like regular DCC. I don't even discriminate. Any DCC, right? It would take you forever to just model that. Unless you're into coding and you do some procedural tools with Python or whatever. Unless you do that, and I'm assuming most of our audience in ZBrush is not very it's not very much into programming. Maybe you might be. I am a little bit. But if you're more of an artist and you want to like iterate and see how it looks and whatever, and I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you later what you can do with this, right? So, but for now, this is fine. Let's do this. And now what I can do is I can actually append a new stage and now just lower this, and I'm going to preview what it's going to look like that, for example. Let's say I want to go by amount of 2. If I had, let's say, 3 repeats, and then just go, maybe I want something like this. And the cool thing about this is that it doesn't necessarily lag, per se, if you start sculpting. So what I can do is I can go over here. Let's say I isolate this. And let's start by, adding some dynamic, creasing those edges. And let's sculpt this little slab over here, right? So I'm going to go over here and start. Actually, I want to crease this a little bit more. I want this to be really sharp. Maybe I want to delete that edge, go to my BZM for ZModeler, and now I'll go hover an edge and delete just a single edge, delete that one. I don't want any triangles at this stage, and now I'm going to go over here to my insert single edge loop, actually multiple edge loops, and just add some edge loop over there. Maybe I want this to be as square as possible, right? Now I can increase all, increase based on angle, and then maybe reduce the crease level to like maybe 1. Oh, that's a lot. So let me do like 3 maybe. Okay, there we go. So now we have something like this, right? And it's still arraying, right? So I want to array all the time. Actually, I want to copy this as well and paste this on this array, right? Mesh, paste. There we go. Now we have a row of that bookshelf, right, that we're building on the fly. So I want to have this to have like some sort of like ornament. Maybe I'll just have a little lip over around this section as well, and then just detail a few like maybe patterns or something that I can extract out of a surface noise or whatever, right? Or an alpha, VDM brushes, anything, right? So let me just save. This is a very important part of our workflow, is keep saving, right? Always be saving. And by the way, if you're wondering how the autosave works, if you go to Preferences, under the Quick Save tab, Preferences, Quick Save, you can set the duration of your quick save. So let's say you want like every hour you want to run a quick save. So you pull this back to like 60, and then every hour it's going to quick save. And then the rest duration is when you leave ZBrush open, right? And you wait that amount of time and it starts auto-saving. So I want to do like, again, I think 90 is fine. Whoops, auto-saving. There we go. And I want to go like 90. There we go. 90 minutes. So an hour and a half, and it saves. Actually, you should do 30 minutes or something, but whatever. I set this way because the other ZPR I was working in is 12 gigabytes, right? I have a 12 gigabyte ZPR because I'm crazy, right? And if I had like every 30 minutes, it would just take forever to run a quick save, right? Being able to model and sculpt thanks to the new tools. Yeah. Well, this isn't new. Like array mesh has been there for a while now. Like, but here's the thing, because I got asked a lot, like, what are the new features? And I show the new features and people go like, wow. But then I show them, in the middle of showing them new features, I actually show them some old features and they still go like, wow, I have no idea that was there even. But it's been there for like, I don't know, 7 years, 10 years, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of features here that people don't know about, but yeah, I'm going to show you some cool stuff. So let's go. So this is our little slab, and what we can do is we can start by applying our dynamic, uncreasing. And now let's say I want to go with my handy dandy mallet brushes. These don't come on our brush palette out of the gate when you install ZBrush. They are in the Lightbox. So if you go to Lightbox brush, you have an assortment of variations of brushes that might be up your alley. So you have, like, for example, Z-Modular variations. You have Z-Modular topology, which is one of our retopology methods in ZBrush. It kind of mimics, and doesn't mimic, but it's the most similar to the quad-draw method in Maya, right? So Z-Modular Slice is sort of like our multi-cut tool. So you have variations of those brushes. And I like these, which is the mallet. Where are the mallet brushes? Mallet! There they are. Mallet Fast and Mallet Fast 2. And then you have the regular mallet. You also have like Trim Smooth Border, which is amazing for sculpting rocks. Like blocking out rocks, like artistically, let's say. So coming up with a concept. Where's the trim? Oh, I can't see the trim. Where's the trim? Jesus, wow. Oh, there they are. Okay, so Trim Dynamic Soft, you can see we have a few of those here. And there's the Trim Hole, which is good for hard surface, like creating shape design, basically in hard surface. And then you have like Trim Smooth Border. This is what I usually use to start the shape modeling of like rocks and stuff. Like all those rocks you saw before in Unreal started like this with a sphere and then just blocking out the shapes, the overall shapes, right? All right, so what we're going to start doing is actually sculpting, and you'll see that it works on the fly because I locked the size. I can actually start sculpting. Whoops. And you can see it's affecting everything, right? So let's go a little crazier. Let's go with the trim dynamic. First, just run a little bit of that edge wear. And it's sculpting on every single one of those. And I have a hotkey assigned to turn on and off the array mesh, Alt-A. And to assign hotkeys, all you have to do is come over to any key that you want. So you want to go to array mesh, press and hold Control-Alt, and then tap. And you can see right there on the top of the screen, you can see it says press any key. Look at this part over here. So if I go Control, Alt, and tap, it says press any key combination to assign a custom hotkey, right? Or press escape to cancel. So if I press Alt-A now, it says same hotkey is already assigned because I already had that hotkey, right? You can assign hotkeys like that. Yeah, the trim brushes is, the guy is called Trim Dynamic. This is cool. Someone named Trim Dynamic just commented, the trim brushes are worth a look for sure. Obviously, I'm talking to the brush. So, all right. So what we're going to do is go over with our Trim Dynamic. Just go over a single pass, just making it soft because we had a crease there. So it's pinching a lot of those polygons. Let's just soften it up. Let's just, you know, you have to do this with love and care, you know, so let's pet it a little bit, just petting it really nice and soft, just doing a little bit of that little, especially the corners. The corners are the issue most of the times in these rocks. It's where you can tell like how sharp the rock is and how soft it is. So I don't want something that's super sharp, obviously, because that's not realistic, but I also don't want something that's blobby or stylized, right? So what I can do now is I can go over my mallet fast tool and go over like this and start sculpting. So I can start going like crazy, and the mallet is supposed to be like, you're supposed to sculpt on this as you were like holding a hammer and just hammering out the shape. So let's divide this one more time and go and start hammering. I'm just tapping on my screen. You can see I'm just literally tapping on my screen. And again, you have to keep in mind the scale of the object. You look at your human over there and imagine, okay, this has been chipped away or something. The size of this rock matters for the size of your chips, or of your details, right? If it's too highly detailed, it might look like some piece of metal or something where it's very sharp, right? So depending on the size of the rocks, if it was a huge rock, obviously you would have like, it would look smaller, the type of detail, right? It depends, right? So if you want to make this like it's been chopped up, it's obviously going to be like, you might as well just use the knife curve brush, right? So in this case, I'm just going to start tapping over there, tapping. And this was just to showcase because we're not done with the block out, right? So I can just start like going like crazy, tapping this edge over here. And then we can use maybe an alpha. We can change this to maybe like a more of a round alpha. And now I can just keep tapping over here, making those details over there. Just tap like it's a hammer. Guys, this is a hammer. We're hammering away at our mesh. And then if you hold Alt, this is what you're doing. And again, then you can just go over. I like my orb brushes, but you can go over with the H polish brush and just tap as well. Do Alt tap, maybe change that focal shift a little bit. Just go over there and just start tapping away at the surface to make it look a little bit more homogeneous. And have some custom alphas. Maybe you made some alphas in ZBrush for iPad where you're sculpting on the fly, and then you just go Z that and use that over here. I mean, if you're doing it in ZBrush for iPad, might as well just sculpt on ZBrush for iPad. All these features on ZBrush for iPad that I've been telling you guys. Like, if you hold a ZBrush license for 2025, you have this on ZBrush for iPad. Array mesh is there. These brushes could be brought in. You can bring your brushes, your custom brushes in ZBrush onto your ZBrush for iPad. You can create custom brushes in ZBrush for iPad. So it's all there. It's not something that's unique to the desktop in this case, or it's not something that is new. Let's say it's been there for a while. So go mallet fast number 2, start chipping away at that surface and chip away, chip. Let's go. So again, maybe a bigger brush size, start chipping away. Let's go back to our alpha. So you have like more chunky pieces of that surface, like very irregular surface, because it's supposed to be like an irregular slab like that. And then go like that, maybe. Chip away that surface again. Again, we're hammering. So we can just lower that Z intensity maybe and just start like doing like this, like little motions, like you're pushing that surface, right, onto each other. And then I want to maybe make a little bit of a chip there, a dent. And there you go. And now if you look at it, we're starting to see that it's coming together as a sculpt. Maybe you want to, if you look at the whole thing, you want these chips to be a little bigger, right? A little more obvious from a distance, right? And you can see how it's kind of like it's tileable, like that model. And that's sort of what we want. Eventually, this is going to be duplicated and combined and stuff like that, right? So yeah, so this is the cool thing about this. Where we go, and we want to go like that. All right, so we have this little base for our slabs. We're here. I think it's fine. We can go and run a surface noise and preview it on the fly with our, maybe change that shape over there. I want to do strength, maybe like that. And I want to change that noise scale, maybe a little bit bigger. Now we have something like this, right? Just to preview what it's going to look like. And now maybe we want this to be a little longer. Let's go back here and want to change that to match that surface. Same thing goes over here. I want to push this down, sort of like there. That's fine. It works. And now we have this going on over here, right? Now, here's the thing. If this is stone and we want to have our bookshelves, like you could have like stone shelves, right? But I want to try out something different. I want to have some wooden shelves that are hanging by like a chain or something. Let's make something more creative, right? That's so cool. Quick key assignment. Yeah. So again, assign a hotkey, and you can assign a hotkey to a menu as well. That's what I did. So I made my custom menu, which is called Sculpture over here. And then I have another custom menu called the brush holder. And I have box modeling brushes. I have control shift brushes. I have curves, IMM brushes, right? Sketching brushes. And all of those have a hotkey, like those menus over there. And just control, hold, tap. And what I'm doing constantly is pressing and holding Control V. Not pressing and holding, sorry. Just pressing Control V. And the menu pops up. So I can go full screen and just work like this, right? And then I have my hotkey assigned for, oh wait, it unassigned actually. So again, Control tap, Control Alt tap, Control A. And there you go. And now Control A is basically turning on and off array mesh. So I can preview this on the fly, right? So what I want to do here is actually I want to do some wooden shelves, and then they're tied to like this sort of like chain or something. So what I can do here is I can actually sculpt a little stone over there in the middle that's going to hold a handle, right? So again, blocking out. So we're doing stuff that's very simple. I can actually insert another subtool, and I promise I'm going to rename stuff, guys. I know. Okay, I know the struggle. Okay, so let's do another. Let's insert Cube 3D, and this Cube 3D, I don't care about any of the deforms and stuff because I just want a very basic Cube 3D over there. I want this to be like maybe 0.2, holding Shift while scaling, and I want something like this, maybe a little smaller, maybe like that. And then this is gonna hold like that hook that we have, right? And maybe I want like a little bit of some skull details or whatever. I want to have the books, the block out of the book. So this is gonna hold that ring, so I can Control Hold Tap that little like the gizmo, and then I can switch this to a ring 3D and just scale it up on the fly. Again, same subtool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push this back over there till it almost clips. And this is gonna be where it's gonna hold our chains, right? So we're gonna push this maybe to the top over there. And it's gonna hold our chain, right? And then our chain, we're just gonna make an IMM, right? That works. And then if you're gonna do like the low poly version, you can have a low poly and a high poly and just bake that. Just bake those assets and just have the low poly as an IMM with UVs, and then bake the actual chain links together, and then apply that texture to your IMM mesh that's low poly, right? So quick key assignment. Are there layers for coloring in ZBrush? No, I don't think so. But again, I don't do a lot of like poly paint unless it's like assigning color IDs. If you're into like collectibles and stuff, for sure, you do something like that. There'd be some layers to that, for sure. So layers in ZBrush are they're deformation layers, right? They're not layers like you have in something like Photoshop or whatever, because that's not how ZBrush works. In ZBrush, the layers are deformation layers. Think about it as blend shapes in a sense, right? Imagine blend shapes in Maya, right? Have a blend shape, and it's transitioning a point of a vertice from one point to another. It's deforming that point, transforming that point. That's how layers work in ZBrush, right? So how to do cracks? Hello, how to do cracks on it? So cracks, it's a little too early for that, but I'm going to show that for sure. Is there any way to make a flat surface that doing this with the help of Z-Modular? I'm trying masking the back and inflating, but it doesn't work properly. What do you mean by make a flat surface to help with Z-Modular? I don't know if I understand the question, but yeah. Let me know. Like I don't know if I understand the question. Like domeness. What is domeness? Flat surface to help with Z-Modular. Are you talking about like projecting a image onto a mesh? There's two ways you can do that actually. You can do that via masking with shadow box, which is an old method. It's been there since like I found out about ZBrush, basically, like a long time ago. But you can also use Spotlight, which is my preferred method. But if you have a particular shape you want to project into a mesh. So yeah, so let's carry on. Let me know if you have if you can clarify that last question, and I'll go over that with you. So we have this. Let's go and actually just do this. Run a little dynamic subdivisions. Let's crease that, and actually let me crease by angle 45. Let's do 90, 89. Okay, crease. There you go. And reduce that crease level. Crease that. There we go. All right, so now we have some shelves. Let's do some shelves, right? Finally. And what we can do is we can hold the shelves with these slabs over here. So we can do something, maybe we want this slab to be a little wider. Something like that. And then it can hold the shelf over there, right? Maybe this is a little too thick. We can fix that real quick. We can go over here with our Z-Modular brush and just go Q-mesh. Maybe let's paint that polygroup over there. And let's Q-mesh that polygroup island. And then press and hold Shift. Just move it ever so slightly. And now we have some space for our shelves over there, right? So now I'm gonna just duplicate this because I find this easier. So I'm just gonna duplicate that over here and then change this to like a regular cube. And now I'm gonna split. So I'm gonna go over here and split unmasked. So that's a separate subtool now. And now what we can do is it can go over here. Let me just do the low poly. Look at the low poly version. I don't need any, I'm gonna model that on the fly, so I don't need any edge looping. Move that over there and just scale that to where we feel like it works, sort of like that, right? So we have this like so. And here's the thing, we have this array over here, you know, we could just copy that array. So let's say we have a pattern for like, I don't know, I like using, if you guys have a license or you are using Megascans, just use Megascans. Just use, there's a bunch of like displacement maps over there, and you can have, let's say I'm gonna go to surface noise. Oops, I'm gonna go to surface noise, and now I can go in and click alpha, and I'm gonna go onto my library, and I'm gonna pick a displacement map for something like wood, right? So I'm gonna go over here to wood. Do I have a wood? Yeah, wood boards, for example. So I can go wood boards, and I can use this as reference as well. So I'm gonna go displacement EXR. Okay, I can load an EXR. And there we go. Is it loaded? No, it's not loading. This is insane. Why is it not loading? Let's try it again. Let's do displacement. Maybe this doesn't displace a lot, so let me go wood boards, wood board. This is fine, I think. Wood boards. And we can use some UVs. We could use some UVs on this for that. So let's do, actually let's do wood boards. This one. I'm gonna do the displacement map or the AO. Doesn't matter, let's just run the displacement map. And, okay. Let me just, maybe, yeah, divide that. Let me preview the divided one first. That is probably a good idea. And now I don't want to mix any basic noise. I just want that displacement to work its magic. So I'm gonna scale that down a little bit, and I don't want this to be that strong. Maybe I want this to go in a little bit, and something like that. And now here's the thing, we're doing 3D projection, right? And this texture, let's say it's a texture. If you're doing this on the iPad, let's say you're just taking a picture of, because you can do that on the iPad. It's a uniquely an iPad feature on the surface noise. You can take a picture and it creates an alpha for the surface noise. Let's say you take a picture of a wooden board that you're in the park or something. You're sculpting, like, and you're sculpting from life, let's say, and you take a picture and it's kind of like tilted or something. What you need to do is you want to go over here. Let's turn off that surface noise. Alt S. It's not working for some reason. Let's do Alt S again. There we go. And I want to create basically some UV. So what I can do is I can insert an edge loop in the middle over there. And I'm just going to create some very, very basic UV. So I'm going to create two polygroups over here. Go to Z plugin, UV master, polygroups, and wrap. And that's it, right? And here's the cool thing. Now if I flatten this, I can type, like, control tap with my gizmo and rotate my shells so they match, and I can look at the surface noise by turning on the surface noise. And so they match the angle of that surface noise. So I can go like that, for example, and just move it around in the surface noise. Maybe something like that works. And now if I unflatten this, start. Oh, okay, because I'm not using UVs. So you have to type in, click UVs. And now, okay, maybe it's, let me just go back to my flatten version. Yeah, we have to flip this over. So I can just rotate this like that. And now unflatten this. Okay. Now let's go back to the flatten. And now I want to match this precisely. So maybe I want this to be like that. Right? And here's the thing, you need to use a 3D projection to preview this on the fly. But 3D projection is not faithful to what we want, so we want to go UVs again. And let me unflatten this. Try to match this. I think it works fine for what it is right now, okay? So I think it does work. It's just not previewing because you don't have any rendering topology, right? So if you go like this, maybe now we can preview what it's going to look like, right? Like wooden board. Even though we're still, if you look at that, we have 12 points, okay? So, and then what we can do is we can go over to array mesh and we can copy the same array from this. So we can go over here to our, maybe this one, all right? We can copy that, go over to this one, and then lock position, lock size. I want to lock it, and I want to paste that. And it's going to paste it throughout. Actually, I want to do that to the first. I should do this top to bottom, right? So I want to maybe this one. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. So I want to go over here and paste this one first, and then append the new stage, and I want to copy this one. And now I'm just gonna paste this, and here we go. Now, cool thing, to create some variation, right? What we can do is we can go over to our mesh, actually to this second stage. Let's see if we flip this on the Y. Maybe not. Maybe we don't flip it on the Y. Maybe we can just rotate it. So there's 3 repeats, right? If there's 3 repeats, we need to rotate it at a specific angle. Let me actually do 4 repeats for this one. And move it in 4. There we go. And now we want to go to rotate and rotate in the y-axis 360 degrees. And actually, there we go. Okay. Actually, we don't want 360 degrees. We want the last one to match. So it's 360 plus 90. That's ooh. How much is it? I mean, I'm terrible at math, so oh, there it is. Yeah, 720, right? For some reason, there it goes. 720. And we can see that the pattern is not the exact same. Like it's basically it goes 180, 180, 180. It's like it goes around. For every other, it's flipping this around. So I can go to the other stage and do the same thing. Just rotate into Y. Like that. And now we have some very slight, like a slight variation to those planks, right? Maybe that the surface noise is a little too much, but it doesn't matter. We're going to sculpt it anyway. So we can move this. This is another thing. I'm going to move this to the front. And if we move, it's going to offset that because we've rotated it, right? So then maybe we want to do that after. Let me just unlock that position. Lock it again. Maybe I don't want to do that. Let me just keep it as it is, and then we're going to do the chains, right? We can actually move this back. Actually, let's just move this back like that. Now it has a little bit of space, a gap in the bottom, right? So that's what we want, like on the back of the wooden plank. So now, for books, block out of the book, right? Let me just create a new one. Again, insert another object. I'm going to insert that cube. And I'm going to use this cube with some Z Modular action to create the base shape of the book, right? And we can have open books. We can have closed books. It doesn't really matter. It's the same idea. So what we can do is we can go both ways. We can do the open book first and then just use the bend curve. So I can explain that real quick. So if we go, let's say I want to do like a cube and I want to have the cube be something like this. Actually, I want a cylinder for this. I'm going to use a cylinder and I want a closed cylinder, right? And in this closed cylinder, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just model and then I can scale it. So I'm going to extend this. So I'm going to extend this down. Actually, again, it reserved the settings from previously. So what I want to do is I don't want any inflate. And I don't want that much geometry. I actually can get away with something like that, right? And then what I want to do is I want to delete that last section, right? And then actually, I could actually just maybe make it a little longer, like so, right? And now I want to delete that. Actually expand that, delete hidden. And I'm going to scale this to sort of around the size that you want your book to be. So let's go take a look at the hands of the dude over there. It's still too big. Maybe something like that. And then scale it up. It would be something like this. From like a, this is kind of like a necromancer sort of, bookshelf, right? And we want to make these books, we want to make a couple of these books and then just use array mesh, because at the end of the day, we're not going to bake every single book uniquely, right? So you want to have a couple of variation of the books, right? With different, borders and stuff like that. And then bake those separately. And in Engine, you're going to set dress your entire scene, right? Is it worth it for a video game? I use shadow box. Okay, wow, that's a lot of questions. Guys, thank you. I think it's hard to control the colors in ZBrush. Not necessarily, it depends. I just don't do a lot of it. But, Rodolfo, I wish of your stream videos you recommend reviewing the foundation for those who are returning to ZBrush. So again, we have a getting started series to ZBrush. So you want to go take a look at that. In the beginning of the stream, I mentioned that we have a Getting Started with ZBrush for Desktop and a Getting Started ZBrush for iPad. You want to take a look at that. If you want to review the basics of ZBrush. And again, I'm happy to help with any questions that you guys might throw my way. So what tablet do you use? So currently I'm using a ZenSlabs. We have ZenSlabs, we have Cintiqs, we have I mean, personally at home I use my ZenSlabs because this is the tablet I have for like 2 years or something. I won it at the ZBrush Summit. So at the time I was still in the audience, which is crazy to think about. What tablet? Okay, like I use Shadowbox to make a leaf, but the surface is flat. So I want to make the front of the surface 3D, like we use for the section. I tried inflating, but the shape is not even. All right, I'm going to show you a little trick, right? First of all, saving. There we go. Save the project. I'm going to show you a cool thing that I use all the time when I'm concepting stuff, like sculpturally, right? So I'm going to go to a different tool. I'm going to create, it doesn't really matter what it is. So I'm going to go over here, make Polymesh 3D. Can you guys hear me all right when my face is like facing this way? Is that okay? You guys hear me? Okay. Doing prompts and ZBrush just work for video games. The only viable big game since you're gonna bake the normal by doing something on the trim sheet. Yeah, I do my trim sheets in ZBrush, by the way. All my trim sheets, all my tellable textures are done in ZBrush. Like entirely everything you see. Again, that environment I showed you has a ton of trim sheets. It has like at least 3 trim sheets and tellable textures. And everything you see there, including the trim sheets, including the tellable textures, was sculpted in ZBrush. Everything, right? So, yeah. So we have this. Thank you, Lisa. You're like my stream reviewer. Okay. Loud and clear. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to show you something real quick. So I'm going to pull an image, like an atlas, right? You have an atlas for your leaves or whatever you're doing. Let's say you're building a tree in something like Speed Tree, right? And you're building it procedurally. You have your cluster cards, your cards for your leaves and all of that, regardless if it's VFX or games. But then you want to have an actual mesh of something, right? That's going to be up close, right? Of a leaf. So I'm going to go into my... Wow, did I close that folder? Yeah, I guess I did. So I'm going to go to my library over here. I'm going to get an atlas. So let's go downloaded atlas. Oh, it's empty. I don't have an atlas here. Why not? Let's see. 3D plant. Nope. Surface. Leaf. Let me actually open this up. Let me open this up and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to use the leaf as an example. All right. Should have this. Okay. The ground leaf. Where is the ground leaf? There we go. Okay, so I'm here. Let me just sign in real quick to this. I have an account for this. All right, there we go. I'm signed in. And now I want to get a plant atlas, actually surface. Where's the atlas? 3D plants, ground clover. Okay. Let's go leaf atlas. Where is the atlas? Atlases. There you go. Right. Fern, moss, herb, vine. Doesn't really matter, right? I'm going to get a vine shape. Let's do this one, for example. Devil's ivy. Which is useful. If we want to go like and make a low poly vine, we can do it in ZBrush using fiber mesh as well. Cloth dynamics as well. Could do that, like drape that on top of something. Like if I want to have something that wraps around perfectly on this bookcase, let's say this bookcase is outside for some reason, in like an old like crypt or whatever, then just do that in ZBrush and then bring out the low poly. So Devil's Ivy, there it is. Okay, so now where is it on my folder? Okay, it's not here. Let's do Atlas. Yeah, it's an Atlas now. Taking a little bit. Find leaf, there you go. So you have an image over here. What I'm gonna do in ZBrush is I wanna go to texture, and the first thing I wanna do is import a texture. So I want to go into my folder, whatever you have, that's for that particular atlas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in an opacity mask. If you already have an atlas or a texture or a picture of that image, you can bring an opacity mask and ZBrush will detect the black as transparent and the white as opaque. But I'm going to show you something even cooler. So I'm going to go and bring in an actual image, like the base color of that atlas. So what I want to go and do is actually turn on my spotlight. Uh-oh. Is it made Polymesh 3D? There you go. Okay. So let me insert another mesh. For some reason it's not. Huh. Let me import another. Okay. Oh, wait. Because in Modular. Okay. Clay build-up brush. Gonna go to texture. No, wait. It's not working. Okay. Turn on spotlight. Shift Z. Nope. Ah, come on. Is it not working? Let me see. Let's go to texture. It should work. Let me try something else. Let me try with a different image like this albedo. It's there. Supposed to be working. Let me see if there's something on this that is not. Huh. Spotlight ain't working, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna create a new project. Might be it. Let's create a new project. Let's go over to my light box, and I'm gonna show this because it's not relevant to this project anyway. So let's go project, dynamic sphere, and go to texture. You can load a spotlight as well. Let's see if it loads for some reason. Let's do. Actually, go over here to my light box, spotlight, and Jesus. Okay, double click. It's loaded. It's there. Should showcase at the spotlight. I'm changing this for some reason. Okay. Not letting me see the textures. That is a weird one. I might have to get back to you on that one. It should allow me to switch to that texture. But whatever. So let's say you want this mesh over here. Let's say this is your leaf for some reason, right? Let's scale this up. Yeah, it's turning on and off. Why is it not letting me the texture palette? Let's go here. Let's drop this, dock this over here. Okay. Whatever might be the reason for it to not allow me to select that. Whatever. So let's go to our, actually I have a, do we have an atlas over here? Maybe not. Yeah, no. But we have a texture. Let's see. Do we have like a nope. No, but let's see. Panoramas, master checkers, image. We don't have an atlas of a leaf here, which is strange. Okay, whatever. So let's say this is your leaf, right? And let me just delete this one. Right, I'm gonna go over here, delete that one. You're gonna snap this to the surface of the mesh, the center of the mesh, scale it up. And what you can do is just project that image. And it's gonna work based on that, right? So you have this, which is a mesh that has some topology. It has some loops. The loops depend on how long do you press this. So if you press this and rotated this like one of those old phones, right? It's gonna do the edge looping for you. So you can see how many edge loops. None, actually, for this one. But let's say I want this one, right? And now I can scale it down. And let's say this is your leaf. What you can do to start deforming this, you can actually go over here and start using the bend curve deformer. And now you can switch from this axis to this axis, go like that, and maybe do a little bit of that shape over there. And maybe now you want to go here and accept, and you want to do another deformer, actually bend curve. And now you want to do like, maybe you have the trunk of that leaf. So you want to go like that. And now you just start sculpting. So now you just go old school sculpting, damn standard. Do something like that. Maybe you don't want that stroke to be as evident, so you're going to go over here to your lazy mouse settings. Lazy step, you want to throw that down and just do clean sculpt over there, and then just start sculpting in that leaf shape. So you don't need shadow box. Technically, you can just, you know, start sculpting that leaf. Let's say this is going to be a leaf like that. That hard surface shape could be used for many different things. So something like this, and then we can just clip that shape over there. Clip curve. Oh, clip that. Dynamesh. Actually, let me Dynamesh. Drag that Dynamesh resolution onto your mesh so it matches the resolution of your current mesh. Now just smooth that out. Again, we don't need that, but again, just sculpting a leaf. Actually, we don't want that. Let's go clay build up and start building that form. Whoops. Start building that form over there. And at the end of the day, you can iterate with the shape design in Spotlight. So Spotlight is gonna be, let me just go a little lower. Spotlight is gonna be your go-to, let's say, to bring in atlases and just sculpt them. I have to check why is that wrong. It might be something I'm missing. Why is it not working? Like the Spotlight, add to Spotlight, basically. It's not working. So I'm gonna do that, a little bit of those striations over there. Maybe I want to build that form out like that. Just go sculptural. And some props is just more, it's better to just sculpt them, like especially organic props. And then you're just doing this, like maybe go smooth stronger or something. And yeah, let's inflate this a little bit. Actually, I should have inflated. And I want to go to my brush, my inflate, and go auto masking. And I want to do back face mask. So that way I'm just doing the inflate on this side and not that side. So I can just inflate this. I know it looks ugly. Doesn't matter though, because we're going to redynamite. Oh, Jesus. That is a weird one. Let me just smooth that out. Redynamesh. Inflate it again. Inflate it again. Smooth it out. Redynamesh. Inflate it again. Again, it's just inflating this side of the mesh. Right? And you don't need that side of the mesh, right? And here's why you don't need that. Because what we can do is we can just clip that and now Control W. And we can Control tag the undo history. Control tap. Delete hidden. And now ZBrush this. Actually, I can edge loop that. I should have edge looped that, but it doesn't really matter. I can just go geometry, ZBrush, half, adaptive size down to 0, keep groups just to make sure it softens that up. So I want a smooth group. I want to smooth that mesh, 0.1, and just ZBrush. So I can just do a little bit of some work over there. Maybe I want to mask the border. Or just actually let me ZBrush this again by half. And now I want to mask the border. Go to masking, mask by feature, turn off everything except border, invert that, and just start smoothing. Just smooth that edge, around that edge. This helps ZBrush. Actually, we could just delete those polygons over there. And just go delete hidden. And now ZBrush again. Right? And now what we can do is we can add the thickness to this. But first, let me just divide this a bunch of times. And now I can project the details from that history point. So I can go to subtool, go to project history, turn off color. I don't want to project polypaint, right? So I can project history. It's going to project the detail. There's not a lot of detail, to be fair, here. But if we had some detail, we could project that. So let's just project that, and it's done. We divide it again, project. And now I can delete my subdivisions and go to dynamic subdivision, turn it on, lower the smooth subdivisions, and add thickness. This is non-destructive thickness post subdivision. And I don't want, maybe those segments are a little bit, maybe I don't want that much. I just want that, and then we can smooth it out afterwards. So effectively where you're sculpting is just sculpting on one-sided face, right? So now you can go and start doing your thing on one side, on the surface, and then you have basically your dynamic thickness. So this is how I would go about making a leaf, because then what you're going to do is you're going to create like this sort of square shape with all of your leaves, all of your vines, and you're going to bake that onto a plane to make an alpha, like an atlas, right, for games. And then you can texture it in Substance or whatever. Let me just check the chat. Yeah, it was done. It was make polymesh. All tools from project. You did try that, yeah. Okay, in the next stream, let us know that it worked if you weren't able to figure it out here. Yeah. I'm gonna figure that out. Doesn't matter. Save you so much. Yeah, so just using deformers. Again, you can just make, let's say this is your leaf. Obviously, this is like beautiful. Look at this. Beautiful. Beautiful. So let me go over here and duplicate this. And I'm just gonna move it out. Whoop. I don't need that one anymore. Oh. And I don't need that sphere as well. And now this one, I can just go over here with my deformer. And again, it's 800 polygons. It's not a lot, but it's still. I go with my deformer and just start playing around with this. Maybe move that over there. Move that over there. Move that over there. And here's the thing. You want to create a custom shape. Go over here. And on your spotlight, what you can do, you can come over, this is a hard surface, obviously, but what you can do is you can come over here with another one, move that shape over there. Let's just scale this up. Maybe I don't want any opacity. So, whoops, I don't want the spotlight projection mode on. I just want, where's the opacity? There you go. Is that opacity? There we go. I want this to be fully opaque. And then whatever's on top, right? You have this little gradient over there. So we have spotlight radius. We don't want any spotlight radius. We want the opacity. We don't want any background opacity. We want that to be transparent. So you can see that it's kind of like the two shapes are merging together. So let's say I'm scaling this up, and let's say I have an extender here. So these are sort of like your deformers, right? These are your deformers in Spotlight, right? So you can do like this shape over here. And what we can do now is that we can rotate, for example, like that. And now we can extend this shape still using that same axis. Or we can actually, okay, let me just do a cut. So if you go over here, there's a union mesh. There's a union mesh. And if I did that, and not a union mesh, a union spotlight thingy. So I can go over here. Let's say I want to rotate this back to what it was. And if I press Alt and tap that union, it's going to start cutting away at that image. So effectively, I'm creating my own art surface alphas. So I can have like let's say a leaf that's like cutting one piece, one image from another. So if I have a leaf image over here, and then I have another shape, like one of these shapes over here, I can just start cutting pieces of the leaf and make those cut leaves, right? So, and then just project that surface, right? Same thing goes, like, let's say I have this one over here. Let's say I have this one over here, and I'm going to start scaling it. And maybe I want to deform, whoops, I want to extend this to be sort of like this capsule shape. And I want to rotate this out like that. And I want to mirror, actually mirror, flip, or mirror. Whoops. I don't want to, this is the pin spotlight. I don't want to pin the spotlight. It's mirroring on that axis. I don't want to mirror on that axis. This is rotating the entire thing. Okay. So we can do maybe, let me just, I don't know, like maybe I want to repeat this. I want to repeat on the, whoops, on the side. Maybe I don't want to repeat that. Maybe I can do this, and then I can extend back and extend. Actually, let me extend this. Whoops, I'm just scaling. Why is it just scaling? Extending. This ain't extending. There we go. Right. So now I have this, and I can come over here, and I can just go like on this top portion, Alt tap. Well, okay. That draw size maybe will influence that. No? Well, okay. That union is not working properly. Let me do that. Well, it really matter. It is extending. It's a render issue over here. It's basically doing this. Well, it doesn't matter. You can just be creative and cut. But there's some stuff here in the spotlight that it's not working properly for some reason. Like this should be cutting in there. But whatever. Now you see my point. Imagine this is a leaf and you're just chipping away with different images. So yeah, spotlight is a rabbit hole, man. If you get into spotlight and then you just project, like let's say I want to project that. That's my shape right there. So now I have a hard surface shape with a clean edge loop around it, right? That's important because this, if you want to smooth subdivide it, right? It still has that and it's creased. I can just uncrease all. And now I have this shape, and obviously I would need like some sort of like edge looping here to make it more sharp. So I can still go over here and insert multiple edge loop. And now I'm inserting those edge loops around. And now I have a clean piece of geometry based on an image I just cut, right? A sculptable piece of geometry, right? And here's the cool thing. Now I have that shape. Let's say I want to bring that in over there. And now instead of just pressing that button, I'm going to hold Alt and press it. And here's what's going to happen. If I have live boolean on, actually, I had to have live boolean on. It's making a subtractive subtool on the fly. So I can make complex hard surface shapes and design like this with spotlight. I can do like that. Maybe this doesn't work as properly. Maybe I want something like this, right? And there you go. This is something just to keep in mind. I use Spotlight a ton for stuff like you're asking about, like leaves and stuff, using an image or an alpha or whatever. UVs when subdivided, I had some problems with creased edges and stretching out UVs, doing UV maps and subdividing. Okay, so you mean like dynamic subdivisions, or are you actually subdividing? Because if you are actually subdividing, you can turn on and off smooth UVs over here. And this is where you should keep your eye on. If you're just subdividing, right? So, yeah. Divide, edge loop, action is performed. Yeah. So basically you want to have, well, dynamic doesn't have a feature like that, but yeah, I assume it's just looking at this. So if you have that little button on, it's smoothing the UVs. If not, then it's not smoothing the UVs. You can do that much with Spotlight and you'll use it for image reference. Yeah, you can also use it for image reference. I use it a lot for that. You can blast through the anatomy without stopping to use reference if you have practice drawing it, the knowledge transfers. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so I would say you don't need to know drawing to be a 3D artist at all. I know people who haven't picked up a pencil in like 30 years and they're successful 3D artists in the industry. It's not mutually exclusive, you know, but it helps. Like if you know how to draw, like you're developing your eye. You're developing your eye for being, so as an artist, it helps you be more sensitive to visual forms and shapes and design and composition. Obviously it helps, but it's a tool. It's a tool that you're using, you know, so it helps, but it's not mandatory, I would say. You don't need to learn how to draw first and then go into 3D per se. All right, so let's go back to our little thing. Otherwise, we won't make much progress in our streams because I can go on tangents, and you guys know me. That happens a lot. So let me just open this up again. I don't know why this is happening though. It's weird. Okay. I don't know what. Oh, okay, the standard brush. It's the brush. I was using the Modular. Dang it. Okay. So yeah, I could use an alpha. So let me just show you on another alpha what you were asking. So let's go make Polymesh 3D. And now I want to click this one and I want to add it to Spotlight. So go to Texture, add it to the Spotlight. And now we have this to in our Spotlight. And what I need to do is, again, you see it like it read the black part of the texture as a transparent piece of mesh, right? A mesh that's transparent. So let's say I want to have this a whole atlas over there. So I can just, you know, snapshot 3D, and here we go. We have an atlas filled with leaves. And now we can go, for example, and do like auto groups. Go to basically your tool palette. Go to polygroups, auto groups, and now just split by groups, right? You can just split by groups. Or if you want to project those separately, you can go over here and just basically crop like this. So basically I want to extend this down over there. And this is basically works like a crop, right? So I want to extend this. Maybe I just want that leaf over there. So I want to go, whoops. So maybe I want to go to the center and I extend that over there and extend that over there. I want to extend like over there. And maybe now I want to go to my paint mode, and under paint mode, I can start painting in black and white. So if I paint absolutely black, it's going to be transparent, which means I can just paint away the rest of the pieces of the image that I don't want, right? I can just start doing that over there. And now, if I just project that, I have a single leaf, okay? And then you can go ahead and do what we just did, which is like go over here, bend curve, and start, you know, maybe I want to do, first I want to do that axis over there. And here's the thing, I usually do this and I save a camera position. So if you go over to your draw palette, and under your draw palette, there's the camera, and you can store a camera. Actually, perspective needs to be on. So I'm going to store a camera, and I want to make this sort of like that. I want to scale this up, right? Then careful about your resolution as well. So I want to store a camera like over here. Go to draw, store camera, and I'm going to call it 1, doesn't matter. And I have a hotkey for this. So this button over here, which is going to switch from camera to camera, means that if I rotate my model for some reason, I can press 1, actually control 1, and I'm in the same position. So now I can come over here and just snapshot 3D, and now turn off that whole thing. And actually, let me just delete this one and have that one be my unique one. So now I can have Spotlight on as a reference, and I can even lower that opacity a little bit. And or maybe I can bump the opacity, and then I want to use Spotlight projection. So I can go to paint, my paintbrush, and if I start painting, whoops, with my Spotlight on top, I'm effectively painting that texture on top. So now I have a reference, right? At least a reference for my color. And now what I can do is I can go over here, bend curve, and I can flip that angle and just do that curve that we did. Maybe add a little bit of resolution over there. Whoops. And I want to move this up, and then move this down, sort of like that, right? And then I want to accept that one, create another bend curve, and now just maybe with a simpler kind of shape, just do that, and you have your leaf. And you want to see the cool thing is that you have that edge loop over there, right? Which means that you can just go over here, BZM, and go to your polygroup, polyloop. Click that, and now Control-Shift tap those, and go auto group. Polygroups, auto groups. Now you have two shells. You know what this means? This means you can have UVs now. Just go Z plugin, unwrap your UVs, and now we have polypaint here, which is cool. So let's say this is polypaint, right? Which means that if I start dividing, my polypaint is going to be a little more detailed. So if I start dividing a little bit more, start dividing a little bit more, and now I have my spotlight, and I'm going to press Control-1 to bring that back, and now I'm going to go to my paintbrush and start painting again. Paint on top of that again. Control-Shift-Z. And now if for some reason you want to have a texture, you can go over here to your UV map. You can see we have UVs, so I can morph those UVs, right? And I can sculpt on this mode as well. I can go down standard mode and just start, like maybe I want to see where the veins are and I want to be like super flat. Maybe I want to be like this and just go and sculpt those striations. Maybe because it's easier for you to do this in flat mode than it is for you to do like in 3D. So something like this, and then morph it back, and now all that sculpted detail is there. So the cool thing about this is that you can just go to texture map and create new from polypaint, and now you have your texture over there, right? Basically, I can turn off my polypaint, and this is my UVs. This is a texture. So I could tweak the polypaint and start painting with polypaint and then bake that into a 2D texture. So yeah. Another one bites the dust. Dynamic subdivisions, okay. You don't even know how to draw sculpting either. You don't even know how to draw sculpting either. Okay. Sure. Thank you, Rodolfo and Blood Rapture. Okay, I like to draw a lot. Is there a way to keep spotlight? Yeah, drawing is, I would say, is a good skill to have regardless, right? So, yeah. Regardless if you're environment artist, a character artist, I always say like drawing is always useful. Right, back to our little prop we were doing. Then we went on a tangent. But guys, I love this. I love that you guys are interacting on the chat. It's been a while since I've been streaming regularly, so this is cool. But let's go back to this little book, because we had this here, and I wanted to showcase how to block it out at least. And maybe we're going to do like some of those, like bookmarker, like the little straps that the books have and stuff like that. Maybe not today. So, you know. So let me go over here, and let me just do a little crease. So I'm going to crease this by angle. And now what I can do is I can do two things. I can either, well, first of all, let me close this hole over here. Yeah, and for some reason it's not. Actually, I'm going to use my ZModeler brush, and I'm going to bridge these two edges. I'm going to bridge this one to that one. Why is it not working? Okay, bridge this. First edge. Okay, first edge, second edge. There you go. And then click this one. And this one, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, there's two things I can do. I can either go over here and do like polygroup flat island and just polygroup this flat island, polygroup this one, and polygroup that one, right? So these are the same polygroup. And I could just inset the polygroup island and just start insetting like this, right? Or go the other way around, just extrude that out, right? So another thing, we're going to Z-model the heck out of this, right? I want to Z-modeler a lot. I love Z-modeler. So I can just go and do that. And now we have a little shape of a book. And now we can just go crease this and reduce that crease level, smooth subdivisions. We need some subdivisions here in the middle. So I'm going to go insert multiple edge loop and go like that. And here's the cool thing. You want some cool like shape design in your binder as well. So what we can do is we can do alternate polygroup. And I'm going to go in and do something like that, for example, right? Now we have those polygroups working over there, right? And actually, does it keep, let's do same polygroup. So if we do that, no, it's just the same polygroup. Let's do alternate polygroup. I'm going to do this. Maybe that's too much. Something like that. And I'm going to still, I want to polygroup that flat island. Maybe a different polygroup. Same thing goes over here. And now I have all of these polygroups, so I can go over here and do like Q mesh, polygroup all, and just go like that, control, to basically have a separate little mesh. So you could do this, but I don't like this. I actually want, we have a little bit of an issue here. Let's do that. Let's do that. And that, and that. We don't need this one to be different. So there we go. And now this little polygroup over here, that these all of these polygroups can be done all at once. So let me just uncrease all for now and crease based on angle. And now I want to Q mesh all of them at once. I'm going to change back from dynamic so you guys can see. And then hold control. And this is what we're getting. Right? Whoops. And this is what we're getting. And those shapes, actually, that's a little bit too much. So let me just drag this over like that. And now the cool thing is that we can come over here, insert some multiple edge loops like that. Maybe do this, maybe do that, maybe do that, and maybe do that. And then they still hold, right? So I can go over here and Q mesh this. Or maybe we want this as separate polygroups, as separate objects. So we can go, maybe do this. And then tap this one just once. Actually, let me do different polygroup. Just a little bit. Let's see if it snaps over there. That does. Or actually, I could do, let's Q mesh. No, actually like this way it was going. There we go. It's welding like that. It's not, doesn't matter though. Actually it looks sick. So we have this, and now I want to go Control Shift tap that, Control Shift A to grow to that entire mesh. Same thing goes with this. Control Shift, whoops, Control Shift A, and then tap that, Control Shift A. Those are separate for some reason. That is a weird artifact. Doesn't matter. So, and now that we have this, we're going to split this. So I'm going to go to masking. Well, not masking, but actually to subtool, split hidden. And now we have a separate, we have a separate subtool over there that we can use to adorn our book, right? So now we have this, and we should have done this a little, maybe a little thinner, guys. I don't know. It doesn't look like it would fit, it would belong in that little book. There we go. Now we have something like that, and we can crease. So this is the cool thing I like about ZModeler, is that ZModeler allows you to design more than it allows you to do math, brain math, basically, which is how I felt most of the time when I was doing box modeling. So basically what you're doing is you're doing this little binder just by clicking a few polygons. You're sculpting with box modeling. That's the meaning behind ZModeler, right? So we have this, right? And we can do maybe, let's do an array mesh over here. And we can make an IMM, for example, and just have this spawn whatever we want. So, but I'm just gonna array it, so just to check how it looks at the end of the day, right? So let's do array mesh, new array mesh, lock position, lock size. Let's check the pivot. There you go, it's in the center of that. As we want this to be actually, yeah, let's do this, and then we can reset this to the center. So let's go and repeat this, I don't know, like 6 times. Or actually, let me think. Yeah, let's do 6 times. And let's do X amount like so. Like let's type in 6. So this is what it would look like. And now I can just copy. And again, go back to that subtool, array mesh, lock position, lock size, and paste that. Now we have a few books over here, right? And the same thing goes for like a scroll, if we're doing like a scroll, one of those round things. So let's just do that real quick. So at least we have like a block out today. Again, I can go on tangents, man, and that's, I think it's also part of the fun on this. So let me just go over here and center that. Let me just duplicate that over so I don't need to repeat myself over here. So I want to do, actually, I could do something. Actually, here, we're going to use nano mesh. We're not going to use an array mesh. So I'm going to go over here, change this back to a cylinder. And, or actually, I want to do a sphere 3D. And I want to split this. So I'm going to split unmasked. And this is my subtool over here. Let me just scale it down. There we go. Perfect. Actually, this is a little bit too much. Let's do 2.5. Doesn't need to be perfect. Again, it's a unshift D. And let's isolate that, go to solo mode. And I think that we're good to go over here. Actually, let me just redo that sphere. And let's do something like this. Go 50%, right? And then what we can do is we can either extrude this out, we can start modeling that that scroll. The scroll, the little, like a scroll when it was like wrapped around, it was like this tube thing. So we can have that. Let's just sculpt, let's do Z Modeler on this, or we could just, you know, extend that. But I like to Q-mesh, flat island, just go Q-mesh this out, maybe just a little bit like this tip. Now Q-mesh, polygroup all, I want to do that over there, and then just Q-mesh, well, polygroup island is fine, and just do this. Actually, I want to inset this, so I'm going to go inset, polygroup island, just go that way. This is just the base of the scroll, and then we can go and do polygroup Q-mesh and just boom. Let's see for scale. It's probably a little bit too. It's probably a little bit too big. So something like that would work. And now we want to keep extruding that out, which technically it's not an extrude, but it's fine. Again, and I have perspective on, which also doesn't help with this kind of stuff. So yeah, let's say we have this. This is kind of like your scroll, and we have it's like at least the tip of the scroll, right? So we can also just mirror this. And now ZBrush, this is something that was added, I think, after 2022. Someone was asking me what are the major new features 2022 to 2025. I think this was added after 2022, not really sure. It's the dynamic symmetry. So it's looking at the gizmo, right? So now if I go in mirror and weld, go to my geometry, modify topology, mirror and weld, and I want to do the Z, it's going to look at the Z axis of the gizmo. So if I do mirror and weld, there you go. It's looking at that axis. So I can do, maybe I want it a little bit longer, so I can go like that, mirror and weld. And there you go. And we have our little scroll over here. I can do this maybe, and I want to go like that. This is actually perfect. So you see, like, cool little quick design tip for you. And we have some scrolls. So now we can just, for the sake of like just looking at this and, okay, there's going to be a few scrolls here. Let's just do a little array mesh just to preview stuff. So I'm going to go to my array, go to array mesh, and I want to reset this. And if you look at our gizmo, if I reset with lock position on, it's going to go to the center. If I turn it off and click reset again, it's going to go to the center of that object, which is what we want. Because now what we want to do is we want to offset by 1. And you can see it's basically going through the entire thing, right? I can actually unlock size, reset, and then just go and do like an amount of 1. Actually 2, because now it's been reset to the center of that mesh. So I want to do 2. And I want to do actually like maybe, I don't know, maybe I want 10 of these. And then I want 20. Actually not 20, it should be 10 anyway. There we go. And now we have all of these scrolls. And what we can do is you can add another, append a new one. Let me see. Actually, this doesn't work as well as I hoped. It should be nanomesh. I should use nanomesh for this. Just have that be extracted over here, right? So let's say we want to do, let's do this quick before we wrap these things up. It's already over our time, but let's say I wanna do that nanomesh workflow. So I can just QMesh that polygroup island. Let me extract this little face over here, and now I'm gonna split hidden. And that little face over there is going to be divided. Let's say I want to divide it. Actually, let me go to my regular gizmo. And I want to scale it. Whoops. I want to scale it from the bottom over here. And I'll make sure that it covers most of that surface. So now what I can do is I can start dividing that. Actually, no. I want to have some thickness over here first. So I want to go and do QMesh, right? Like so. I want to push this back like that. And I want to divide this now. Like that. Right? And I want to make this an IMM, right? That's the number one thing that I want to make. So I want to have this very low poly mesh. My own IMM brush, so I can go B, click insert multi-mesh brush. Now I have a brush with all my subtools, which is actually, I didn't want this. I actually want a, whoops, come on. I want an insert mesh brush, and I want to do a new, just that subtool. I don't need all the other subtools. So I can go to this mesh over here, since it's already divided. And let me just apply my dynamic subdivisions and delete lower. And now I want to isolate that single part because it has enough geometry. And I want to delete hidden. So now I am left with this little plane over here. A little curved over there. It doesn't really matter. I can actually just flatten this out by having a clip curve. Just have that go over there. There you go. It's flat. And now what I can do is I can ZBrush this to make even polygons. So because I want even polygons all around. This is the big problem. So I want to go ZBrush. I want to keep groups just to smooth them out ever so slightly on the first try. Go same and turn adaptive size all the way down to 0. This will make your quads more even. So if I click ZBrush now, it's going to create some even quads, or it's going to try to create that even quads. Let me do the symmetry so it's symmetrical. And let's do half. I don't need a lot of those polygons. Actually, I don't want to smooth it anymore, so I can turn off keep groups and go like that, right? It's sort of even. It's trying to do its best, right, to keep it even. So now we have this. I want to turn this brush into a nanomesh brush. And now with the nanomesh, I can just insert into all polygons. Insert that mesh on all polygons, right? And this is what we get. Actually, we should have this flat. So I'm gonna actually delete, actually have this be absolutely flat. This is something I wanted to do. I want to do, this is not really flat, but it doesn't matter. It's just for the sake of this explanation. So I'm gonna delete that and go over there, flatten this out, do this, and then do this. There we go. All right. And make sure I had a flat land. So now, if we spawn this, it's gonna be well, it's not going to be properly offset, but we can change that pattern. So we can go over here to our nano mesh settings, and under nano mesh we can tell it, okay, I want the size of this to be 1. So maybe it's too small, so I want this to fit or to fill, but I want proportional size. So I want something that's sort of the same size as it was before, so maybe 1.8. And now I want this to offset on the Z to be like over there. Maybe I want this to be bigger. Maybe I should have like bigger polygons. That's what I should have. So then we have something like this. I'm not going to keep all of the polygons, so I can still paint away some of these. And this is instances, so they're not real geometry per se, right? So we have like this over here. And we can actually even, let me turn off my nano mesh. Let's do something else. Let's do slice curve brush. Now let's do a few of these polygroups. Actually, let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. So it does keep those polygroups even. So let's do keep groups, smooth groups, and adaptive size down to 0. And now we have same. There we go, retry. Let's do symmetrical. Let's do go back with symmetry on. There we go. Actually, we should be able to do maybe even flatter. Yeah, it's still not completely flat, but I guess it's fine. You guys get the point, right? So then we can go insert nano mesh into all polygons again. Or we could just do this bottom one. We could do like, maybe I want to insert into the polygroup island. And we have this, right, on the bottom over there. And we can move that placement mesh to where we want. And I can tell it, if I go to nano mesh, turn off show placement. So now all we're getting is the actual meshes and not the placement mesh every time I draw upon that, right? So I can go back to my index number 1, copy, and then paste on index number 2, and now we have that. So on index number 1, which is this bottom one, I can just offset it by, whoops, by the X, the Y. Oh, Jesus, that is a crazy one. So I can actually just make, let me see, let me do a pattern. Maybe do a tile. Let me tile it by 2. And then I want to make this side a little bit bigger. Maybe I should have done this bigger. Yeah. So let me just delete that one. And now with this, I can have a pattern, like a random distribution. I could have like this, for example, right? Which would be technically how it should look like, more randomized, like a diagonal line. And have something like this. Maybe I want to delete, let me just go ZModeler and delete that edge loop. Go to my nano mesh brush and then go size number, go 2. And I want to still tile this. Maybe like so. Just a height tile, and change that pattern to be something like that pattern 2, I think. Was it 2? 6. That was 6. That 6 worked, actually. Because then we can just duplicate this around and have that. So I'm going to copy, go to my index, and paste this. It's kind of randomized. Yeah, this one is also like go ZModeler. And delete that. So now we have this. On my index 1, I can actually... Can I offset it? I can't. So as long as you don't have any collision, so I can do -1 offset. Actually, let me not do that. Let me go to like that. Diagonal border. We can flip. Actually, I should do the same. Let me just paste this. And then I can just flip. No, actually I can't. So let me do, whoops, a daisy. Just rotate it ever so slightly. And yeah, we have some of these, but I actually want to move them down eventually. Same thing goes over here. Let me just Z-model this out. And I can just go back to my nano mesh and start spawning. And the same thing goes for the books. Like you could actually just go and, you know, do the same thing with the books, right? This looks like some nails or whatever were placed in there. So, and it's not showing the placement mesh. So what I can do then is actually, let me go over here. Size is matching. It's just the size of the polygons that's different. So I actually don't want that one. I hate that one. And now we can just go ahead and go into inventory, go to one to mesh, one to mesh, one to mesh. Now we have the meshes. So I can go over there and flip that. And now we have those meshes, right? And we can individually just go in and move them down so they match, you know, and then just go like that, move them down so they match. Whoops. And you can go like auto group this. And now that we have, like, you see like how I did the masking, this is a new feature, by the way. If you go over to masking, there's now a mask grow all. So if you go grow all, it's going to grow to every model that has been touched by that mask. So now, for example, if I unmask just portions of that, I can go shrink all, and I have just masked that section over there. So I can go maybe and place this, whoops, and place this over there, for example. And maybe I want to do that, shrink all, and I want to have this over there. I want to mask that one, grow all, whoops, reverse, move it up. So you see how easy it is to just mask and move stuff around. There we go, shrink all, move them, go over here. Maybe I want to rotate this one. And I want to, let me do that, shrink all. And you can assign that to a hotkey, which is like much easier. And we can just maybe offset some of these ever so slightly, so it doesn't look like weird. And just push them over here to the front. And now we have, and again, it's array meshed. So it's being arrayed around, well, this is a little crazy. Okay. I can just delete those, I guess. Delete hidden. And this as well, I need an array. And yeah, so this was like the block out, basically. So I did not block it out as much as I want. Like streaming, talking, you know, answering you guys' questions. This is what the point of this stream is. So let's see. Is there a way to keep the spotlight saved in between sessions? Yes. So if you have a spotlight, let's say you have this spotlight, right? You want to save the spotlight, you can just go over here to texture, save spotlight. And if you save the spotlight, it's going to save you for whatever, the next section. So it's going to save a file that's a ZSL, which is ZBrush Spotlight. And then you can just load it next session. Or you can just put it on your folder system. Sorry. I'm going to switch to guide the sculpting and dance. You mean like the lazy mouse feature? Wait, it's whoops. You mean the lazy mouse, right? The little. So you can do that with any brush, as long as you have lazy mouse on. So if you go over here, let me just go over to the cylinder 3D. Doesn't really matter if I sculpt. So if I go clay buildup, for example, it doesn't have, well, it has lazy mouse on. As long as it has lazy mouse on, you tap and then you hold shift and you have this little guideline. And then you let go and it does a stroke, technically. So if you do the DEM standard is the best example, because this is a brush that people do this a lot, right? So you can just go like that, hold shift, and now it will give you an angle over there, and just let go, keep your pen in the screen, and tap shift every time if you want to design like your hard surface shapes or whatever. Or you could just keep on sculpting and then let go. There you go. So is that what you mean? Like with holding shift and snapping? I'm from Portugal. I'm not from Mexico. I'm sorry. Sorry to disappoint. But yeah, Latin relatives, obviously. Portugal and Spain. Latin, Italy. So yeah, looks awesome. I have a small question about tiny triangles. Is there a way to merge very tiny triangles automatically? So it's weld points you're looking for. So if you go to modify topology, geometry modify topology, there's a weld points button with a weld distance. So this is where you tweak the distance between those welds, and then just click weld points and should weld those together if they're very close. Unless it's just a single triangle in space without anything else in that subtool, then you can't do that. Just delete the subtool, right? Like a subtool needs to have some geometry, otherwise it doesn't work, right? So yeah, so this stream we actually blocked out a little bit like the shape and showcased a few tricks and tips over here. I'm gonna use this project for this series, right? I'm gonna keep using this CPR just because I also want to use this to create that shape over there, like to make an archway or something, and sculpt that. And we're going to do retopology here. We're going to do UVs, like a base pass of the UVs in ZBrush. I'm going to show you the whole process. And eventually I can even show you how to bring that into something like substance and texture, right? So that's going to be cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I mean, any other like last minute questions? Small question about that. Okay. Thanks. Thank you so much for sharing your lessons. Oh, it's my pleasure, man. It's what I'm here to do. So this is a very informed segment of some. Yeah, I hope this motivated you guys to just, like break the boundaries of what is possible within ZBrush. Like again, don't just stick to a single thing because it's the most popular thing. Look at whatever it is, and I mean character art. Obviously, a lot of people are not character artists and they're afraid, they're scared of like ZBrush. I feel like that's just a shame because I do drawing and I started with sculpting characters obviously in ZBrush, but I started going into ZBrush with a mindset of this is like my hammer and chisel as an artist. And back in the day, if you think about it, like Michelangelo was an architect. Michelangelo was a character artist and an environment artist. You know what I mean? So but he was a sculptor in essence, right? That was his role, right? So I want you guys to look at yourselves as sort of like you're sculptors, right? And then what you're sculpting is kind of like irrelevant. It's whatever you guys want and whatever you guys like, you can just sculpt, right? You can even sculpt effects, right? So yeah. And yes, for sure. Like if Michelangelo was alive today, he would definitely be using ZBrush. He was using the ZBrush of his time, which was like the top, basically the top in technology that they had at the time, right? Like every painter and sculptor was doing at the time. So nowadays, I'm not saying that this replaces clay sculpting because it doesn't. Maybe in a production scenario, it does because you want to get the job done as fast, as efficient as possible. But it doesn't mean that you can't do clay sculpting. I enjoy clay sculpting on the side anyway. So, but it is a tool, right? And it is a tool that is super powerful. It's the most, the most used tool for sculpting in the industry. And for sure, you would use ZBrush if he was alive today. So I'm thinking about getting the 2025 version this summer when I have enough funds. Really, really like the iPad one. And I like the idea of moving the project between the iPad and yeah, we can take a look at that. Because, again, I had the whole setup here. I just didn't use it. So, for example, I can just show you. So I have a whole setup here for our ZBrush live streams where I can go back and forth between the desktop and the iPad. So we can do a small little project where we start off on the iPad and then just move into ZBrush desktop, to the UVs, do whatever it is on desktop that is still not on the iPad, and then go back to the iPad and back and forth. And we can do a cool little project. I can think about something and then get back to you guys on that. So yeah, especially in rigging and environment design, besides being just an animator. Yeah, Yeah, that's really cool, actually. You're a rigger here. Environment design doesn't seem to be related to rigging, though, but it's interesting. That's cool. All right, guys, it is already very late here in Germany, so I have to run. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, I'm signing off, and let me know. Again, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Discord. Just reach out to me on the official ZBrush Discord as well, official channels as well. If you have any support questions, you might want to put in a support ticket. But if it's not a support question, it's more like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Then just go ahead and post it on the ZBrush Discord server, post it on whatever social, either me, Ian, Paul, Daisuke. You can just reach out to us and ask questions, and we're going to try to cover as much questions as we can. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.